poem written, I think he wrote it in 1938, and we all know what happened in 1939, World War II. And like Cecil Day Lewis, like Stephen Spender, Cecil Day Lewis, modernist poem, who had experienced the World War I old enough to know and notice, and the Great Depression, and was sitting at a time of war, watching. And as I said to my students, it's not like suddenly Germany declares war out of nowhere. I mean, they weren't in isolation. People had been fleeing the country. People were trying to get their Jewish relatives out of Germany as people were being, their businesses were being seized. They were taken out of their homes, their possessions seized. They were being put in ghettos. This was all before the war. Hitler was beefing up his army in the Rhineland, and as a result, the Allied nations were also building up their weaponry yet again. Yeah, Germany was having economic growth, but it was kind of a false economic growth because like the women were being shoved back out of jobs and that. Hitler's way of creating jobs was just to take jobs away from non-German people and women and put German men into them. And citizens who are reading the news and noticing and speaking to each other are going like, we are heading for another war again. It's like we haven't recovered from the last one. We lived through the last one, and now another one's bloody coming with the same key players. Oh my God, do something about it. Leaders, do something about it. That was supposed to be the war to end all wars. We lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of our citizens to that war, horrifically. Why aren't you working hard enough to keep the peace? Why is your only response to prepare again for war? Will it be so again? This is the repeated rhetorical question the whole way through, and he asks it in many ways. If this poem comes up, they will definitely ask you something about the different ways in which this rhetorical question is posed. Will it be so again that the brave, the gifted are lost from view, and empty, scheming men are left in peace, their lunatic age to renew? Will it be so again? Must it always be so that the best are chosen to fall and sleep like seeds? And we, too slow in claiming the earth they quicken, and the old usurpers reap what they could not sow. Will it be so again? The jungle code and the hypocrite gesture, a poppy wreath for the slain and a cutthroat world for the living, that stale imposture played on us once again. Will it be as before? Peace, with no heart or mind to ensue it, guttering down to war like a libertine to his grave? We should not be surprised. We knew it happened before. Shall it be so again? Call not upon the glorious dead to be your witness then. The living alone can nail their promise to the ones who said, it shall not be so again. Okie dokes. So he is really, he starts off by contemplating and then wandering in a very frustrated way to imploring and then kind of a very, very angry call to action. Things to pay attention to here. The repetition and the difference between the will and the must and the shall. Okay. Will it be so again? By the time he gets to shall, there's almost an acceptance of, well, if it's going to be like this, it's almost a resignation. And then it's a, well, you know, if it's going to be like this, then don't think you can go and call on the glorious dead, the people who sacrificed in the war, right? It's only the living can nail their promise to the ones who said it shall be not so again. So it's ending saying like, hey, the people who made these promises, our leaders, hold them accountable now while you're still alive. There's a contrast throughout this poem between the soldiers who die on the battlefield and the men in power who commission it to happen. And we can see it with the diction: brave, gifted, lost from view. Lost from view, obviously meaning that they die, but also we just forget about their talent and their ability and shove them off to be cannon fodder. We just forget about their actual potential. Compared with empty and scheming men, they left in peace. In peace can refer to, we leave them alone. They don't have to go into actual battle. But also during a time of peace between the wars. What are they doing during peace? They're renewing their lunatic age. And that lunatic shows you exactly what he feels. This is mad. It's insane. It's senseless. It's a transferred epithet again. They're the lunatics. And then will it be so again? Be so is just leading to war again. The war that we had that ended less than 20 years ago, he's talking about. And the build up to war. Must it always be so that the best? So it's the brave, the gifted, the best. And then he introduces a pastoral metaphor: to fall and sleep like seeds. So it's a euphemism about dying. A euphemism is a more gentle way of saying something, right? And then he introduces a simile: sleep like seeds. And what happens when seeds are buried in the ground? They renew, they grow. But here we go. We too slow in claiming the earth they quicken. To quicken, when something quickens, and you see quickening in Namaqualand after the rain as well, that word, which means to come to life, to have life. Okay. So we don't actually go, they've died for us to have this peace. Let's claim this peace. Let's do something about it. Let's change our leadership. Right. And what happens in the old usurpers, the same old leaders? A usurper is somebody who, like Macbeth, takes power unethically and illegally. These old usurpers, not old meaning they're old men, they're not young enough to go to war, and old as in the same old ones who've been there time and time again. They're the ones who reap. To reap means to take the harvest. What they could not sow. They couldn't sow these seeds because they were too old and not brave enough to head off to go to battle themselves. Will it be so again? The dash tells us, pay attention to this explanation. Will it be so? Well, what do you mean by be so? What is so? And he says the jungle code and the hypocrite gesture. Jungle code in the army, a code of the jungle: kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, right? Hypocrite gesture, is that a salute, perhaps? Is it the laying of a poppy wreath on a grave to commemorate Armistice Day? You'll see it on the 11th of November, 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month is when they had the ceasefire at the end of World War I. And it wasn't the official end of the war, but it was the ceasefire, and that's why it's commemorated. And after the ceasefire in the fields of Holland and Belgium and in France, because of all the bits of bodies and the blood and everything, poppies came up all over the show. And so every year people put poppies on the graves of the fallen soldiers. And it's become a symbol for fallen soldiers, specifically of World War I, as Poppy Day, but it also honors all people who lost their lives as veterans. Okay, so hypocrite gesture can also be the poppy wreath for the slain, the dead, and a cutthroat world for the living. Yeah, he's bringing in a jungle gesture there, right? Cutthroat. But that idiom cutthroat means you just take what you want. In business, cutthroat. Sorry, you weren't fast enough. I got the job. Okay. And obviously in the Great Depression, that was a very cutthroat world. That stale imposture played on us once again. An imposture, an imposter is somebody who pretends to be something else, but an imposture is something pretending to be something else. And in this case, peace. We're going to go to war so that we can keep our liberty and our freedom and have a better life. And he's gone, it has not been a better life since World War I. That's an imposture, really. Because firstly, it's a really cuck right now. It's the tail of the Great Depression, and we look like we're going to war again. Then will it be as before, again with a dash? Is it going to be as before, not again as before? That's even more specific. So peace with no heart or mind to ensure it. Are we going to have that again? Again, like another peace, but nobody has the sympathy or the strategy. They don't really want to actually keep the peace going. Guttering down to war. Look at that onomatopoeic word, guttering. sounds like a volley of fire, machine gun fire. And also, if you think of what a gutter does, it collects all the rainwater and sends it down one channel in one direction. So the guttering is a very, very powerfully evocative word, which appeals to both the sense of hearing and evokes a sound of gunfire, rapid gunfire, as well as creates a sensation of we are heading fast in one direction. Like a libertine to his grave, another simile. A libertine is somebody who is a person who doesn't follow the rule of law and just indulges in pleasure. And ultimately is going to drink or drug or sex himself to death. Okay, that was the popular word of the time to call somebody a libertine. And that's the inevitability of a libertine eventually is gonna drink or lazy himself to death. We should not be surprised, colon. And why shouldn't we be surprised? Well, I'm telling you with a colon, which means I'm really telling you that you must pay attention to what's coming now because we knew it happened before. Absolutely. World War I. And even before then, the history of humanity is war after war after war. But at this juncture in history, it would have been, oh my God, we've just had this huge flipping war to end all wars. And if you were 10 years old at the end of World War I, you're only 30 at the start of World War II. Shall it be so again? Shall it be? There's a more of an acceptance to that word shall. And then the shift changes to don't. It's like, don't call then on the glorious dead to be your witness. Don't go now and go and put poppy wreaths and honor the dead. You can't then go, oh my God, we've got a war again. Look at all the dead people from the last one. I mean, you can't, he's saying. Only the living can nail their promise to the ones who said it shall not be so again. To nail a promise, that means to really fix to them, to hold it to them. And the ones who said it shall not be so again are indeed the leaders who started the war. Okay, I'm going to give you questions and answers. And then more questions. How does Spender use rhetorical questions in the poem? What effect do they have? The answer is there. Model answer is there. What contrasting imagery is presented in the poem? What does it signify? Pay attention to the model answers because if you learn them, it does give you a chance to practice your phrasing should you get similar questions in your exam on Friday. Please click subscribe. It's free. And for more content in this section, click on the playlist.